Hey, this is Al McCarn. Welcome to a special Israel Connections edition of Reunion Roadmap. And it is my great pleasure to travel all the way to Australia once again and talk with my friend and one of my favorite authors, Susanne Ratcliffe. Susanne, welcome back to the show.
Oh gosh, thank you for having me. It's absolutely wonderful to be here.
Now, when we talked a few months ago, you were just about ready to publish your first novel, Stones of Wrath, The Tapestry, and you've just now published your second novel, Stones of Wrath, The Twins. And
Yes.
so that's what we're going to talk about. And I want to say something by way of introduction. So the story takes place in Denmark and Argentina. And I must say, the first time I was in Denmark, back in 1983, that's when I became aware of the Danish resistance in World War II and
Yeah.
learned about that incredible heroic event in 1943 when the Danish people rescued their Jewish citizens from the Holocaust. That's a big part of your novel.
It is, yes, because they managed to rescue nearly all of their Danish Jews, which is wonderful.
And it's quite a story. Now, I've read a lot of World War II stories, fiction and nonfiction. I've read a lot about the spy, the intelligent aspect. What I was reading in your novel, The Twins, was some of the most gripping action.
Oh, that's good to
Oh,
know.
really? Because you get into the resistance operations. And of course, the characters are so real, like they were in your first book. So, but I'm doing all the talking. We should hear about you. Where does the story pick up?
Okay, so in the prologue of the first book, we learn about a prophecy of three world wars, and so the first book concentrates on the First World War. This one's the second, and the third is the build up to the third. Of course, with each war, scales drop from the righteous eyes, and I believe that has actually happened. The beginning of the 20th century, we saw the thought that maybe Israel would be reborn, and but then in the Second World War, Israel is reborn with just Judah and Benjamin, and in the third book, hopefully we'll. I haven't finished writing it yet. We will see the regathering of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribes that are missing, the 10 tribes that are missing. So that's where it starts, and in book two we pick up on in World War II. In the dedication, I dedicate to the Danish resistance fighters, and one of the places in the book is called the Hvidsten Crow Inn, and I contacted them to make sure they're okay with me placing my characters alongside their real family, the Feil family. I don't know how you pronounce that, Marius Feil, and I sent them examples from my book where their family are mixed up with my characters, and they absolutely loved it, which was fabulous for me. I was thrilled to bits. And of course, we've got people like the Helsingør Sewing Club in Helsingør. They were real Helsingør. They were a real resistance group, which is strange that they call themselves a sewing club. I never quite understood why they did that, but it sounded very innocuous. And they were, mostly policemen. So my characters go alongside them as well. So yeah, that was fun to do, and so I've dedicated the book to the Danish resistance.
Tell me about your research for. We'll get to the Argentina part, but I want to talk the Danish part. It seems like you're writing or I'm reading a documentary, a docudrama.
Oh gosh, the research is it's so much, so many books and YouTube videos and learning all the history. They say at the beginning of a book that you shouldn't any recognition with some real person, but of course that's kind of a bit of a furphy because if you're writing a historical novel, of course you're going to be connected with some real people. So yeah, I mean, you're saying about the Danish characters, but might just start with how the book starts with my bad guy. Juan Thomas Perez. Now, he is based on a guy called Juan Carlos Goyeneche. And I'd probably get in trouble from people because I'm saying that it is based on someone who's a real person, but my character is just vaguely based on him. So it's 1943, and this bad guy, Juan Thomas Perez, he's helping get the Germans ready, the German elite, in case they lose World War II, to go to Argentina. And of course, we know that really did happen. Lots of Nazis went to Argentina, especially their elite. And in Argentina, they have a town called Bariloche, and I'm just looking at the proper real name. I always forget the real name. It's like a Bavarian town in the Alps that looks exactly like, if you went there, you'd think you're in Germany. And they built this for Hitler so that he would feel at home when he escaped Argentina. Now, the Argentinians, of course, they really do believe Hitler did go there. I mean, I talked to many of them when I was there. They truly do believe Hitler went there, and there's so much stuff that says he did, but whether he did or not, we'll never know for sure. The Russians say no. Yeah, so it was, I haven't actually been to that place in the mountains, in the Andes Mountains, but, Hitler and all the Nazi elite would have felt very, very at home there because it looked exactly like a Bavarian alpine village. And a lot of the Nazis lived, some of them still do, I think, live there.
Actually, yes. I was seeing something a few months ago from one of the American television networks. They had a documentary from several years ago where they went to Argentina and they encountered a couple of Holocaust perpetrators. Like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
yes, yes, Nazis who were living under assumed names. Of course, they were elderly by that time. One of them was actually taken into custody and extradited to, I think it was Italy, where he was put on trial for war crimes.
Well, because that's what happened to Eichmann. I
Yes.
mean, Eichmann changed his name, and he lived quite happily in Argentina until the Mossad captured him and took him back in the 60s. In fact, that's where my third book starts. Just, when Eichmann gets taken back in, and my third book's in the 1967 war as well. But we probably shouldn't talk about that till next time when I finish.
Well, but Eichmann makes an appearance in this book too, and that was one of
Oh,
the.
yeah. Yes, he does. Well, I had to have him make an appearance because it's all about, the whole escape of the Nazis going to Argentina. And so Eichmann was very central in all of that. He played a role in all of that. So that's why we meet him in this book. So then we rejoin Ivy and Mikkel, who are now married, and Annie and her daughter Deborah. They're in Buenos Aires. It's 1919. Mikkel and Ivy have struggled to fall pregnant until now, so we joined them in 1919. Well, my first book's 1916, so it's been a few years, and they've been living in BA for a while, BA for Buenos Aires. And Annie is their housekeeper, and Deborah, and they have a special little part in their house. So we've got Mikkel. He's befriended a Jewish obstetrician, naturally, not only just because Ivy's pregnant, but because his wife and Ivy play at the opera house, play their stringed instruments in the opera house. And during a terrible, terrible uprising, which is a real uprising in Buenos Aires, a lot of stress and pressure was all this worry about communism brought on this terrible pogroms and anti-Semitism against the Jews in Buenos Aires and Argentina in general, because, yeah, it's true, there was a connection between the Jews and communism, but my two characters, actually, Mosh and Ayala, left Odessa to escape the Bolsheviks, and they traveled right across Europe in the caravans of people escaping World War II, and they ended up traveling to Buenos Aires. So at first, everything's quite nice for Ayala and Mosh, but things get rough. Things get very rough. I should laugh because it's actually quite sad. But during these terrible pogroms and uprisings in Buenos Aires, there's a night of mayhem, and Ivy gives birth to these twins in a very unique and important place, which I won't tell you about because that'll spoil the book. And now I had a lot of help for this second book with my friend Ayala Levi, and she's one of those sweet, gentle people. She's brought up in a kibbutz in Israel, and she's seen it all. She's been so helpful and kind, and she's had such a hard life, like she's now lives in Australia, but yeah, she goes home all the time, and what's going on in Israel right now is absolutely devastating to her because she's quite old now. But anyway, she's been wonderful and a great help to me. So in book 2, we see these concurrent stories between the two twins because we jump to their as young adults, and so their names are Ruby and Christian.
I might break in there just for a moment, Suzanne. The relationship that you paint here with this Christian family, Mikkel and Ivy, and the Jewish family, Moshe and Ayala, it was so precious. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, in your first book, there is sympathy toward the Jews, but there's no real Christian-Jewish interaction. In this second book, well, that's a motif throughout the whole thing. And this part one sets the stage there. We have the friendship connection. We have the professional interaction with these two musicians. We have the physician and patient with Moshe
yeah,
and Ivy. Um, it resonated with me because it brings echoes of my relationship with Jewish friends. And
okay,
yes, the respect that we have for one another, yes, the theological differences, but the relationship we have because of our connection to the God of Israel
yes,
and our shared hope in him.
yeah, absolutely. I tried very hard to be respectful with my relationships with my Jewish characters, because I think we can push too hard, and I just believe God's got that all in hand, and we're all going to be one eventually when all this whole regathering happens. We're all going to come together, and God's going to do a miracle. So I don't push too hard with my relationships with my Jewish characters. They're very respectful, very close, and great friends, and they struggle together and love each other.
Yes.
Yes.
So we jump from 1919, just the conclusion of World War One, and I had no idea that Argentina was experiencing the same unrest as we see in Europe after World War One, with the fear of communism, and then who's going to take over, the communists, the fascists, and of course,
Yeah.
the Jews get the brunt of everything anyway, because everyone hates the Jews.
Yeah, that's it. That's so it. And I mean, Argentina was doing really well. It was a wealthy country back in 1919, and things were going really great. But once they started siding with the Nazis and allowing them into the country and putting them in high jobs, and God's just turned his back on Argentina, and that's in a way why it's so poor today. I when I visited there, I saw all these unfinished buildings, and our tour guide said, I said, why are people living in these unfinished buildings? And she said, oh, every election, the way people get votes is by giving them bricks. So people will vote for whoever gives them the most bricks to build their homes, and it's just insane. So the poor live in these half-finished houses waiting for the next election to see who'll give them the most bricks. So it's not really democracy, is it? It's bribery. It's a heartbreaking scene in Argentina now because they have so much potential,
Mm.
but they chose the wrong side. Even though they didn't join in World War II, they were very much complicit, sadly. But that country has more potential than I've ever seen in a country. I couldn't believe all these vast, vast lakes with not a single house on them, and I'm thinking, why don't people live here? Why they all live in the big cities and they don't? There's all this land that's been un, unproduced. It's interesting.
Well, back to the book. You were telling us about the twins, Ruby and Christian.
So we'll start with Ruby. So it's 1943 now, and Ruby's about to marry her young man, Marcus, and he's the son of German immigrants. And at first, we don't realize that I probably really shouldn't say this, but I'm sure they'll forget by the time they get my book, that they are Nazi sympathizers. And it creates all this emotional drama, and there's all this manipulation on Marcus. And that's part of the story of Marcus. He's got to work this through, what he really believes. And it paints the picture of the Jews escaping the pogroms in Russia and Ukraine to Argentina, only to be met with more persecution and, in cases, death. And all the time this is happening, the Nazis are wooing the Argentine elite and arriving in their droves in Buenos Aires. So my Jewish characters, Moshe and Ayala, start dreaming of Israel. And of course, Israel isn't born yet, but it's soon to be. And so they're dreaming of going back next year in Jerusalem, as they always say. We also have a continuation of Mikkel's flight with the ancient biblical artefact, because Hitler has found out about it. He knows he's taken up the Kaiser's mantle and is on the hunt for it. So Mikkel has to flee Buenos Aires, and he heads to San Juan in the Andes. Hitler is searching for all these artifacts, including the Ark of the Covenant, which is not our artifact, but I won't say what it is. Thor's hammer. He's searching for the Antarctica. He believes that they are descended from aliens. That's what I read. Whether that's true or not, I read that he believes the master race was descended from aliens, and because Antarctica is where he's searching for Atlantis. So that's all leading up to the third book too. But Hitler's search is, as I say, devilishly warped version of the truth, because if he'd understood the stories of the 10 lost tribes and had been searching for them instead, he may have realized that he was in fact related to the Jewish people. I'm sure the Jewish people would hate to know that, but if we're right about the 10 lost tribes, and I believe they are, then the Germans are most likely descended from the 10 lost tribes. So Mikkel's on the run. He goes missing. Ruby, his daughter, is also an archaeologist. She took after him, and she's gone looking for him. But we bring Deborah back in. Deborah, as a child, had a prophetic experience in the church just near the end of the book, and warns everybody that something terrible is going to happen in book 1. And so she's here. Deborah is such a prophetess, and she has captured the heart a while ago of the heart of a Jesuit priest. He leaves the Catholic Church to become a minister in the Methodist Church, but his name is Alejandro, and his connection and friendships, he's kept his friendships with the Jesuits, and it proves very valuable in their search for Mikkel. In this side of things, we learn of the terrible earthquake in San Juan in 1943, and a mysterious megalith in El Enladrilado in Chile. Now, El Enladrilado is a place that has dolmens and megaliths and all sorts of strange things. They found connections with North America on there engraved in it. They found a cross. They've even found a cross that was engraved in prehistory, but it's probably the Southern Cross, if I'm honest. But I don't know whether the Lost Tribes went there, but it was such a unique place that in my book we do find stuff there. There's a possibility, because this group, they believe white gods in real life. They believe white gods went to El Enmadrilado. Now that sounds very much like, and because there's megaliths and dolmens and stuff there, it sounds very much like they may well have done. But anyway, of course, in my book it is fiction. But Ellen Gelato is, I haven't actually been there, but I had to do, I have been to Chile, but I didn't actually go to that particular place. I wanted to, and I will one day, but, the wonderful thing about Google Earth, you can go there just on your computer. And so I myself traveled with Google Earth all the way down to El Enrolado, walked the trails and looked at the megaliths and read all the history. So it was quite an exciting place. I would definitely love to go back there. So we'll jump over to Christian now. So Christian's the other twin. Now, in the first book, we learned that his family are into shipping. Mikkel's family were in shipping. From Denmark, and Christian has taken up that mantle from his farfar, which is Danish for grandfather, and he arrives in Copenhagen with a ship full of supplies from Argentina, lots of Argentinian beef, things like that, and of course the Nazis are there, and they've taken control of Denmark, and it's pretty devastating to him, and they seize his food, and he has a secret supply. So he becomes involved with the Danish resistance. So his farfar's chauffeur Axel is actually Jewish, and he's hiding in plain sight. And through Axel's trying to get all his people out of Denmark. And so Christian starts siding with him and being with him, and he meets this beautiful girl in the Tivoli Gardens, who's Astrid, who's the love interest in his life. And she's in the resistance, and her brother has been captured, and he's in a concentration camp. There's a concentration camp on the border of Germany and Denmark. I don't know if you knew that. That happened. There really was one there. And so it's quite an interesting journey. That's all very exciting, all the stuff that goes on with the resistance, taking Jews across the water from Helsinki to Sweden, and meeting up with the Helsinki Sewing Club, which of course is all the Danish resistance, full of policemen, and getting trucks with different painted signs, and some of them getting caught by the Nazis and having to rescue them. And because Christian's cousin Eric, Christian's cousin Eric is not a Christian. And he's a bit of a wild boy. His family are very, very wealthy. Christian's grandfather is also pretty wealthy. Eric's father owns a brewery, Frederiksberg Brewery, and he's a bit of a wide boy, and he wants to get involved with Christian, and they join up, and over the course of time, he learns about the Lord, because Astrid is also a Christian, and he learns to pray, and it's really precious. So they break Jews out of concentration camps. They meet British spy plane. So the British spy plane story, of course, is based on a real story that happened with the Ill family in the inn, the Havits and Crow. So that actually happened in real life, but I just put my characters alongside the real people who are in the resistance. That's a brilliant story, actually. They help a British airman escape to Sweden, and they get saved by an Arctic fox when with Eichmann standing just within a few inches of them. Yeah.
Okay, so I have been to some of those sites in Denmark, and I've taken that ferry from Helsingør in Denmark to Helsingfors in Sweden. It's not that far.
No, it's not far at all. It's all iced over when they're going across, though. It's very, very cold. I dare say it wasn't as easy in the fog and the ice and the snow as, on a nice sunny day.
Well, I have a question about the Danish resistance movement, because the way you portray it, it seems like the entire country of Denmark was in the resistance.
Well, no, they weren't. There was quite a few who sided with the Nazis, but not everyone. I think the majority were with the Danish resistance. Certainly the King Christian, where he's supposed to have worn a Star of David. I don't know whether that's actually true in, with the love for the Jewish people, but whether he did or not. But of course, if your king is on the side of the Jewish people, then the majority of the Danish people would be. I would have thought there wouldn't be too many who love the Nazis, but who knows really? I don't know. But one of the cafes I chose in my book, I had as a resistance cafe. Whether I actually don't know whether it was, but they used to go in there, and the people that worked in there would spy on the Nazis as they were talking in the cafe. So there's all sorts of things like that make me believe. I do believe that the majority of the Danish people were anti, because it's a Christian country.
Yeah.
And there's a church on every corner. It's very much a Christian country, which leads me to Anna Larson. So Clara Larson is a character in my book based on the true Anna Larson, Anna Bjorna Larson. Now, she was a famous actress, and she started the when she got saved, she started the Pentecostal movement in Denmark, her and her husband. And she predicted in 1923 that Israel would be reborn. Now, that's pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. And she preached about the lost 10 tribes and the two houses. And her character, Anna Larson, at first I was going to say the real, I was going to call her Anna Larson, but her character is Clara Larson. And she preaches the most important thing in the whole book on Christmas Eve, talking about who the Danes were and the miracle that God was going to do with the Danes, and saying how there's more than likely that the tribe of Dan means that Hitler was fighting against and killing his own people and not even realizing it. And of course, oh boy, people get up and walk out of the church. The Nazis come in and they get arrested, and all this stuff goes on, and they end up, because Christian's father, because the whole thing of Mikkel is all the way through the book, and the Germans are very much searching for this ancient artefact, and so they arrest Christian and they take him out to the dolmens, and they want him to find all this evidence about this ancient artifact. But Christian's not interested in archaeology, and he has no clue, and he doesn't know what's going on. But his sister Ruby would have been the one they really wanted to find out. But anyway, so that's I think Anna Larson, for me, the real Anna Bjorna Larson, the actress who started the Pentecostal movement. I feel like after reading her history, I've taken up a little bit of the mantle of her, because when she died, it all stopped. All that stuff about the lost tribes and Danes being Dan and all of that, it all just stopped. And so I feel like I've taken up her mantle again here in the 21st century.
And in a sense, then, because the flow of your stories, the two novels so far, we go from Denmark to England to South America. There is an Australian connection. Well, that's your life.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of more my grandfather's life, because, my mum always said, write about things you know. And I thought, well, okay. But my grandfather was a bit of an adventurer. So I thought I'd just trace his journey in the Argentine section, because he went to Argentina, went to Buenos Aires, and rode a horse across Argentina to Santiago and Chile. And I did that journey, but not on a horse. His journey was quite fraught with things. His horse got eaten by an anaconda or something. He ended up in the Andes with that low oxygen fever thingy, and got nursed back to life by a native American Indian. And so he had quite an interesting journey in Argentina, whereas mine was a little bit more nice hotels and things like that.
Well, we appreciate that. I could not have done what my grandfather did either. He didn't ride a horse all the way across Argentina and Chile, but he did come from Georgia to Alabama and worked in a steel foundry all his life. So that's work I'm not sure I would do very well.
Oh well, my Yorkshire family were all steel people. They came from Sheffield, which was the steel center of the world, really. So of course we mentioned Sheffield a lot, and as you said, Australia is mentioned because Nicholas decided, through the stress of trying to keep this artifact safe for the end times, he decides to at the end of the book they decide to emigrate to Australia, which is the third book does start in Israel, but eventually goes to Australia, and we're in Australia now. As I'm writing, they are in Australia. Or Mickle's kind of, well, I won't say. Uh, but anyway, I better not say too much about that until I finished it, because you never know where a book's going to take you, honestly. The characters tell you. They talk to you. They say, we're going to do this, and you do that. But I've had some interesting things happen because it's in the future and I needed help with all this computer science, and I I decided I'm just going to write to the Sydney University guy who runs the computer lab, because all my students are in there, and I thought he'll just ignore me, he won't. And he didn't. He was thrilled to bits, and he helped me with my computer science in my third book. I just can't believe it. Well, his professor, Dr. Philip Leong, thank you for your help, sir. But yeah, he was thrilled to bits to help this little nobody.
Help comes from unexpected places, but
It does. It really does. I mean, just getting interviewed on the BBC radio was unexpected and amazing. But yeah, God has really opened doors. You're a door that He's opened for me, and so was Jean Porter. So it's all been go go go. The second book is like a bridge to the third book. They it's like the bridge between book one and book three, and it prepares the reader for the beginning of the end times, which turns out to be the near future in my book. Whether that happens or not, we don't know. Who knows? People say we're in the end times now. Sure feels like it, but we've thought that before, so we just got to be careful what we say. Well, not what we say, but anyway. But I do want to plug Mickle's book. Now, the person who's most influenced me was Mickle S. Cragg, and his new book, The 10 Lost Tribes of Israel in Europe. He graciously allowed me to write the foreword for that book, so I was thrilled to do that. And he's actually, at the very end of his book, is a plug for my novel, so I'm really grateful to him for doing that. So, of course, I called my main character after him, but when I was searching for all this stuff about the Vikings and their connection with the lost tribes, I didn't find anything until I found his work called Norse Israelite-ish Connections. And I always forget that last bit of that title. I've just got the book here. Norse Israelite-ish Origins. And that's free. You can get that free on the internet. And that was the book that I read and helped me see the connections between the lost tribe of Dan and the Danes. And the Vikings. So that was quite exciting.
yeah, there's always something about the tribe of Dan that's intrigued me. Starting with, it's one of the tribes not mentioned in Revelation 7 in that list of the
Mm-hmm.
tribes. Where's the tribe of Dan? Well, it doesn't mean that they're gone forever, but Nicholas Cragg has given me the best answer I've ever heard of why is Dan not mentioned in that list, although Dan is present. And
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and from the first time I began to look into the 10 tribes and their migrations, Gary DeViti, in fact, was helpful for me in this. Is he was hinting at a role of Dan in helping the tribes to return because the Danes, the tribe of Dan, tend to leave waymarkers along the way of place names.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, of course, the country is called Denmark, the
And there's
kingdom
the
of Dan.
Danube. And I remember something last night. There's Dansk. Isn't there a
Oh,
place called Dansk?
yeah, Gdansk or Danzig is the German
Danzig.
name.
Yeah,
Yes, on the
yeah,
Baltic, that port city. The Danube, the
yeah.
Dardanelles, the crossing from Asia into Europe
It's
in Turkey.
everywhere, isn't it? It's quite
It is.
remarkable when
Yeah,
you start
it.
looking.
So we could just chalk that up to, happenstance or coincidence, or
No, it's not.
no, it seems to make sense that, well, it does.
They were the seafaring tribe.
They were
So,
very much.
so it's not surprising that there are ports named after them. And, I don't know why they call Denmark Denmark when the Danes call it Denmark. I don't understand all these things. Why isn't it just Denmark when it's actually Denmark? Change it to Denmark.
Oh,
Uh,
I just put that down to differences in pronunciation among different languages over the centuries. So
yeah.
perhaps during that time, 1,000 years ago, when the Danes ruled England, that's how the English or the Saxons referred to them. They're from
Oh,
Denmark.
see, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah.
So we're we're right now, as we're recording, we're almost 1 year on since the October 7th massacre in Israel last year and this
Uh,
war that's happened. We've had some incredible events over the summer and especially the last 2 weeks as Israel has, with the Lord's help, achieved some great victories.
oh, unbelievable. I mean, in my book 3, I had to research the 1967 war, and my eyes grew wider and wider and wider. I could not believe how they did what they did in 1967. It was an absolute 100% miracle. And I watched a BBC program on YouTube, and I had not realized, and people don't realize, that America and Britain had absolutely zero hand in that. They did not help them at all. And yet, against all of Egypt and Jordan and all the Middle East, they were completely surrounded. They were about to be annihilated, and they didn't even have, in those days, they didn't have that wonderful Iron Dome thing. I honestly don't think the Jews should ever give that technology to any other country ever. I mean, look at what happened with the last time the Jews gave technology, with the nuclear. Now we've got Iran trying to.
Mm.
Once Iran gets nuclear weapons, really it's game over for everyone. I hope, I feel terrible saying this, but I do hope Israel does get rid of their nuclear facility. They'll
Yeah.
be condemned for it, of course.
Well, what's become more and more clear to me in this past year is the continuity of the story of Israel. Because I see what happened with the Maccabees, what happened with Mordecai and Esther. Um, all of that is happening again. The
Yeah,
Jews are about to be annihilated. God comes through, he brings the victory. And at some point, there will be the final redemption of Israel with all the tribes. Uh,
yeah,
so maybe we're on the threshold of it.
we
But
could be.
and yeah, as I said before when we talked earlier, you're able to address in your fiction some subjects that would be considered ridiculous, far-fetched, silly, conspiratorial. You couldn't address it in any serious literature. Well, actually, historical fiction is serious literature. So you're able to
Yeah,
put out this story and weave some threads in your tapestry of, well, there are other tribes out there and they're supposed to come back.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and in fact, we might even be part of that story.
Do you know, it wasn't until I did that interview with you last time, this is honestly the truth, that I ever considered that I might be one. I wrote my book, and writing my books, and it never occurred to me that I could be myself. And then I found out my brother did one of those DNA tests, and he found out that he was 16% Norwegian and 60% Yorkshire. And of course, York was a Viking centre. The whole of the north of England were, the Vikings just like ran the place. And it suddenly occurred to me after speaking to you and what you said, I thought, oh my goodness, God has not just got me to write these books. I'm actually more than likely, he's telling me who I am. And it never occurred to me. So thank you for that, because, it just blows my mind that I knew my husband had to be one, because we always call him the Viking. I mean, my husband looks like a Viking. He's from the north of England as well. So I'd never doubted that he was. We always call my husband the Viking. And he has special attributes as well. Like, he's quite a unique human being, my husband. Everybody says so. But yeah, the thought that I myself might be actually from the tribe of Dan myself blew me away. And I wouldn't have thought that if I hadn't had that conversation with you. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Well, why not? We all carry multiple identities, and those that we carry legitimately, not like, I could suddenly identify as a cat or as a woman. No, that's not legitimate.
No, let's not go there.
No. But, I can identify as an American, and different parts of America. I was born in Florida, lived in Alabama, I've lived in Texas. I could identify as part of the Scottish diaspora. That's where my family came from. My family also was from England, probably Ireland. And that's where, if there is an Israelite thread in my ancestry, it's through there, through the British Isles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's becoming more and more obvious to me that the Brits and the Danes and Europe are descended from the lost tribes. I mean, I know it's all a melting pot, but I don't know. God is going to do something. He says so in his word that there's going to be 12,000 from each tribe and all of that sort of thing. And of course, St. Paul said all Israel will be saved. Well, he wasn't just talking about Judah and Benjamin. He was talking about the whole lot. So it's all very exciting, actually. It's something to look forward to and be hopeful in. I'm not going to lie, the end times is kind of a worry or a bit of a scary thought, but the Bible says it's going to happen, so it's going to happen.
It will happen.
God
Well,
said it will be.
well, Suzanne, you've this novel, I believe, is better than the first one, so that means I'm looking forward to the third one, which would be even better than that.
The third one is very different. It's unique.
Well, that's all right.
Like I said, they write themselves.
They do. The characters really do carry you in places that they want to go.
Yeah,
Or
they
they
do.
must go.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second book is out now, Stones of Wrath, The Twins, and available on Amazon. And I know you were going to ask everyone who buys the book, please put a review up on Amazon.
Yes, please, because getting reviews helps the book get seen by people. And so far I have only got 20 reviews from Australia and 20 from USA and 17 from the UK. So I need more reviews. So please, when you buy my book, please do a review. It really, really makes a difference. They have these computer algorithms, and when they see you've got reviews and reviews and reviews, they push your book forward and forward and forward. So I see all these people who have gone to all this trouble, written their book, put it up on Amazon with the other 50 billion books. And now, of course, we're competing with AI books that are written in a day. And they put those books up there and they're never seen. But the heartbreak of AI books is just dreadful. I just can't imagine. I have never read an AI book, so I don't know what they're like. but all these people are using AI to write novels now and books, and so Amazon is going to be explosion of what would you call those books? I mean, they're not really books, they're lies. I don't know. Horrible.
Well, maybe it'll all blow over at some point. But in the meantime, we just have to be faithful with what we've been given. And you've been given this story to release to the
Absolutely.
world. Yes.
I will say one thing, it's Ratcliffe with a T, Ratcliffe. When I
Yes.
first met my husband, I used to call him a lemming because lemmings were rats that jumped off cliffs. So that's how you remember my name. It's Ratcliffe. Think of a lemming.
Yes. And you are S.J. Ratcliffe.
With an E on the end. Yeah.
Yes. So go buy the books, folks. Go leave reviews,
Please.
and we'll be looking forward to the third book. When do you anticipate you might have it ready?
Oh, look, honestly, if it hadn't been for all the work I have to do, like it's beyond belief the amount of work I have to do for my other books. It's taking out time that I would normally do, and plus I teach music, so I'm more than halfway. I'm over halfway, well and truly, but it's just finding the time to get it all finished. I just would like to just have the time to just do nothing but write, but that's sadly not the case. So in the new year,
Oh, very
hopefully.
good. Well, I know a few people, one young lady in Tennessee in particular, who is very interested in your next books.
Oh, I think she's already bought it. God love her. She's brilliant. I hope she tells all her friends
Oh,
to read my book.
she will.
Oh, dear.
Well, Suzanne, thank you for telling us about the book, and this visit has been delightful once again. I look forward to
Thank
talking
you.
to you when the third book is out.
Oh, brilliant. That'll be great. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really wonderful.